The mayor is listed as public official one in this, not indicted, not accused of any wrongdoing, but definitely at least implicated for what the feds say was a romantic involvement with Jeffrey Vappie.
That's right, Travers. Of course, we've been staying on top of this moment by moment. Sarah's had a moment to we've been diving deeper and deeper into the documents. Sarah, touch on specifically page 7 is a large revelation, as well as 10, really the whole thing. But as we have had some time to go through it, what's our latest take that we've been going through?
Yeah, one of the things that stands out about this indictment is the information that relates to former interim superintendent of the NOPD, Michelle Woodfork. And there's suggestions in the indictment. We know there were disciplinary actions that were taken against Jeffrey Vappie in 2023, internal Public Integrity Bureau disciplinary actions that were the result of his time cards that he submitted. It appears from the indictment that when Superintendent Woodfork advised the mayor that she was planning to sustain those disciplinary actions, that at that point Jeffrey Vappie attempted to influence that decision. The indictment alleges that he contacted Michelle Woodfork, that he tried to talk to her about it, asked her to quote unquote make it right, and that he also met up with her or tried to meet up with her at a daiquiri shop to discuss the findings of that investigation. The other thing that's significant is that it's sometime after that Mayor Cantrell made the decision not to give Michelle Woodfork the job as permanent chief of the New Orleans Police Department, but instead gave that job to another candidate. And so the implication potentially is that Michelle Woodfork may also be someone who's cooperating with the federal government in developing this case.
Talk about how that would work, how the conversations would go to our viewers, kind of explain how that would work if she has been speaking with investigators.
Yeah, I mean, these federal prosecutors and the agents investigating these cases are extremely diligent, and so they'll reach out to anyone that they think may have information to request voluntary interviews. People have the option to come in and voluntarily provide information to law enforcement. They can, come in with lawyers, but some of the information in the indictment at least suggests that the federal investigators may have gotten information from Michelle Woodfork about that.
And we were speaking a moment ago, there's some additional information kind of deeper in the document. What is your take on that aspect that we were speaking on?
Sure. I mean, the timeline, lays out pretty clearly that there was an internal investigation into Jeffrey Vappie about, allegedly submitting false time cards, that sometime after that, Michelle Woodfork indicated she was going to sustain the findings, the disciplinary action, and that after Vappie's alleged unsuccessful attempts to change her mind, that Mayor Cantrell made the decision not to give her the job as police chief. And what's interesting is that they note that at the meeting where that's discussed with the mayor and Woodfork, that Vappie was actually present for that meeting. Now, whether he's there in his official capacity as her executive protection or for some other purpose, is an open question. But that is it's something to note.
And also important to note, at this time, Mayor Cantrell is not specifically listed in any of the documents as we're going through. Her name, correct?
Her name does not appear. That's exactly right. They refer to her as a public official 1. You can tell from the context that public official 1 is the mayor, but her name is not mentioned and she is not charged with any crimes.
Note, Sarah, I appreciate your time and providing such great insight. Travers, we'll send it back to you.
All right, Aubrey, Cassie, Sarah, Matt, we appreciate your time. Obviously,